Of the many Celtic gods, Cernunnos is certainly one of the more intriguing. He's almost unique in being part animal, for instance, and in this image from the Gundestrup cauldron we have what is perhaps the most impressive depiction of any Celtic deity. It's this Gaulish god I'll be talking about, not the modern Wiccan god to whom the name Cernunnos has been applied, but the Cernunnos of the ancient Gauls. My goal here is to figure out what kind of god the Gauls believed him to be. What we'll be doing is looking at many of the images we have of him to see what we can learn from them. Now at first this might seem like a slam dunk. You only have to look through the writings of Celticists to see what kind of god he was. Over and over we read that he was a god of animals and of the forest. But as I read those descriptions, I became more and more uneasy. It became clear that the scholars were just repeating what others had said and that none of them had done any original research. I'm not criticizing them for this. Life is short in the field of Celtic studies. It's far too big to spend your time tracking down everything and each deity if you want to write a book about Celtic paganism. The thing was, the only scholar who had looked into Cernunnos in any great depth in recent years, Phyllis Prey-Bober, didn't think he was a god of animals and of the forest, but of the underworld. Most frustrating of all was that her article, a link to which is in the description, was often referenced by scholars who did not, however, mention her conclusion. It was clearly time to look at the subject again. The first thing to ask was whether there was in fact enough evidence to say that Cernunnos was a god of the animals in the forest. When I looked closely, I was surprised to find there wasn't. Let's look at the evidence then. The first piece, of course, is that he has antlers. This would have to be dealt with. What did it mean that he was part animal? Only one other Celtic deity, an unnamed god from northern Britain with horns, not antlers, was like that. Even in the Indo-European world as a whole, I was only aware of the Greek Pan, Iris, and Nike, and a lost, horse-headed Demeter from Phegalia. Pan was originally primarily the god only of herds, not animals in general, and the goddesses certainly weren't goddesses of animals of the forest. In other words, being partly animal did not make any of them a deity of the forest or of animals in general. What about all those images of him surrounded by animals, though? The truth is, there's only one, from the Gundestrup cauldron. This is striking and beautiful, but on a close analysis turns out to be not his build. The first thing to notice is that Cernunnos is not in fact surrounded by animals. There are 2 to his right and 6 to his left, plus a small figure riding one of them and a ram-headed serpent in Cernunnos' left hand. Of these, only 3, a bull, a stag, and a dog, seem to be paying him any attention. We can even eliminate the bull. Often the image is shown cropped like this. This makes it look as if the bull is paying complete attention to Cernunnos. If we view the panel as a whole, however, we see that the bull is matched by one in the upper right corner who is facing the same way, which means he is turned away from Cernunnos. So it turns out the bull isn't facing Cernunnos at all, just in the same direction as his partner. The 2 are artistic elements filling in the top corners of the panel. Rather than showing any obeisance to Cernunnos, the other animals are studiously ignoring him. Other than the stag and the dog, the only one facing him is a lion, who is more interested in fighting another lion than in Cernunnos. A third lion, as well as the dolphin and the boy, are facing away from him. Finally, the fact that there is a little boy riding a dolphin prompts the question, if the animals show that Cernunnos is god of the animals, is it also accurate to say that he is a god of little boys who ride dolphins? The final nail in the coffin comes from the fact that 2 of the other surviving inside panels from the cauldron also show a divine figure accompanied by animals, which would lead us to ask how many gods and goddesses of animals these Celts had. It is clear then that when we look at the Gundestrup cauldron carefully, it gives no support to the view that Cernunnos was a god of animals. The only animals that do seem interested in him on the cauldron are the stag and the dog, something which will turn out to be significant, but not in the way they are normally believed to be. There are 2 other images which might be interpreted as showing Cernunnos to be a god of the animals. One comes from Reims. Here he is accompanied by a rat, a stag, and a bull. Since they are burrowing animals, the rat here has been used as support for the view that Cernunnos was connected with the underworld, and that may well be true. The stag and the bull can be interpreted as representing all animals, but they can be seen as representing them in a very specific way. I'll explain this later, for now I'm just setting the stage. The stag and the bull also appear on the fragmentary sculpture from Priod, and they will receive the same interpretation as those from Reims. Once we've put aside the god of animals explanation, we can also say that since he does seem to be connected with the domesticated bull and the domesticated dog, he can hardly be said to be a god of the forest or the wild. But what kind of god is he? To answer that, we will have to analyze the representations we have. Let's look at them and first see whether we have enough images with enough similarities that we can say that we even have a single god to deal with.